Why does the black man serve the white man? Why does everything the black man do benefit the white man? Why does the black man say freedom is doing what I want to do? And why is it that everything he wants to do enriches the European?
Welcome to the desert of the real.
Now, your second point is, do you think Liberia can be product to soup? Yeah, of course. Because not only can we make the arguments that we were done wrong, we can also argue, like Holip's point, it would be advantageous for the Liberian government to sue for reparations because African Americans not being able to go to Liberia or not having the money to go to Liberia dramatically set back Liberia's economy. If Liberia would have had a huge influx of African Americans from the Civil War, from the American Civil War, not the Liberia, but from the American Civil War post Reconstruction, Liberia would have been an industrialized power. Liberia would have made a major player in the scramble for Africa because it would have served as a counteraction to European colonization. It would have been able to have been an industrialized power. Like I said, Liberia was home to not one but two of Africa's first republic, the Republic of Liberia, and then in 1854 to 1857, the Republic of Maryland. The Republic of Maryland only had 1,100 people, 1,100 people. Liberia only had 14,000 African Americans come back, and they were able to turn it into a successful project. Imagine what would happen if you would have multiplied that by 10, if we would have multiplied that by 20, if we would have had 1 million people showed up. Things would have been so much more different. And so the Liberian government could make the claim and say, listen, you sabotaged us. You said this was supposed to be a nation for free people, and you failed to do your part in helping assist them in their journey. You did not provide them the necessary money. You didn't provide them with the necessary resources. You essentially left these African Americans stranded and to struggle and basically left to die. And therefore, the Liberian government would have a stronger leg to stand on, and it would add more credibility internationally because we could say we are directly tied to you. And that's the thing that Liberia has that no other nation can claim. We can go right now and claim to the US government, this country was founded by us and by you. Your founders was there. We know they were there. How do we know? They had a conference in Washington, D.C., or a meeting in Washington, D.C. Francis Scott Key was a part of it. John Marshall was a part of it. Like I said, Thomas Jefferson, James Madison, Abraham Lincoln was part of it. Daniel Webster was part of it. Henry Clay was a part of it. There's a place in Liberia today that's named after Henry Clay called Clay Ashland. So we have a claim that no other nation can claim. And this is why I say not built from scratch. Because guess what the US government will say? We ain't got nothing to do with that. We had absolutely nothing to do with that. Those Negroes over there went to Africa, went somewhere in Africa, declared their independence. We have nothing to do with that. But with Liberia, you can't run. We have the records. We have the archives. Okay? You can read the archives and stuff online. I have a lot of them stuff downloaded. America can't run away from Liberia. And so that is where the advantage of having Liberia as our nation state as compared to build to scratch. Because they could try to distance themselves from the new diaspora nation state. Liberia, they can't run away from that because we have too much evidence on that part. And so, that would be something to think about. Holip said if Israel can get 3.8 billion a year from the U.S., who had nothing to do with the Holocaust, how much could Liberia get if we claimed it as a nation state? Trillions. And then not only that, the U.S. we would have more leverage. And this is what those people with ADOS and FBA don't understand. Leverage is your ability to influence your opponent or whoever you're negotiating with, right? Black Americans, because we don't claim Liberia as our nation state and we don't invest in Liberia, we don't have no leverage. Because we can say no reparations, no vote. Okay, Republicans don't want you to vote anyway. Good. It's not like they're gonna lose sleep or they're gonna cry. They're like, good. That's an easy win for us. You have no leverage. And then you have to factor in it, since black people talk about the Democrats don't do this, but you have 60% of Democrats being white and only 22% being black and 18% being, Hispanic, Asian, and others. You don't really have much of an advantage. You don't have much leverage. But when you have Liberia as your nation state, we can formate bilateral agreements with other nations without US consent. We can start making moves without US consent. We don't need you. We can say, listen, we will be willing to work and cooperate with you, but if you're going to disrespect us, if you're not going to give us what is owed to us and the debt that you are supposed to be paying to us, we will part ways. We will, sort of decouple from you, and you're on your own. And that creates leverage because now the US government is having to position itself from a position of, okay, if we don't work with Liberia and let's say another country goes, that hurts our interests. And so now it gives us leverage to not only get what we want, but also what we want in terms of foreign policy in Africa. It gives us leverage because everybody here knows, I think he knows, there's basically a de facto Cold War between the US and China, but and Russia's another factor in there. And so, do you really want to push a possible potential person to the other side because you don't want to give us reparations? That's something to think about. Since Abe Lincoln vowed to use U.S. government resources to repatriate Africans to Liberia or elsewhere, why didn't the U.S. government see paying for Black transport to Liberia after Lincoln's assassination? So the thing about it is that was Lincoln's goal, but Lincoln had a vice president by the name of Andrew Johnson, and Andrew Johnson was an avowed white supremacist. He didn't really, his whole goal was to make sure that the South was to re-rise again, to make sure that white Southerners and Confederates retake power. He was even impeached by that. And then you had Ulysses S. Grant, who became president, and then he advocated sending Black Americans to the Dominican Republic and then making the Dominican Republic a state of the U.S. That actually they actually tried to do that. That's actually what Ulysses S. Grant tried to do. But yeah, a lot of those Confederate leaders were trying to get power. Like, that's what they were concerned about. They weren't worried about the Back to Africa movement, although there was a push for that for amongst Black people. But for the white population, they were trying to get back in power. Okay. And so Lincoln was really the last of the colonization movement. I'm going to say the last of the colonization movement until they took power. Now, when the Confederates and white Southerners took power, then it was on that Back to Africa stuff. Then it was, okay, we should have never brought them back to the Atlantic. Nathan, Broward County. People don't know this. Broward County, named after Napoleon Bonaparte Broward, he was the man who advocated that Black people should be expelled from the U.S. or Black people should be given a territory where they cannot leave and white people cannot enter. But at the time, during Reconstruction and a brief time afterwards, most white Southerners were worried about getting their power back. And, once that was happening, then they were like, okay, we don't want y'all here. Hmm. I think the thing about ADOS and FBA is that we have to first. I think the response will be, well, why isn't Liberia giving us benefits? Why aren't they giving us citizenship? And then it would basically be a bunch of Q&A questions. But they would ask us, well, why isn't Liberia claiming us? Or why didn't they come and get us before? And then I would basically have to be explaining, basically giving a history lesson like, listen, the government didn't have the resources or the money. They were dealing with export-import issues. They were dealing with, trade with Britain and trade with France and other countries. They didn't have the necessary resources. It was only 14,000 that were able to go out of millions that wanted to go. But also you have the militant integrationists who they reject their African ancestry. And so if you have people who reject their African ancestry and they claim that they foundational Black Americans, which is utterly cringeworthy, American descendants of slavery, and they don't, respect Pan-Africanism, and they don't, respect Africa. They talk about the slave trade in vague generalities. They don't get to the specifics of things. They talk about I'm a Black Aboriginal when they don't speak a Native American language. They can't speak Yamasee. They can't speak Cherokee. They can't speak Choctaw. They can't speak Powhatan. They can't speak any of the, North American indigenous languages. Then I think, that's a lost cause. But I will debate them and show them the fundamental flaws in their argument. And now, if they start doing a bunch of straw mans, a bunch of whataboutisms, a bunch of ad hominems, a bunch of appeal to, ignorant logical fallacies, then there's nothing you can do about it. But that would be my anticipation response. But I would debate them because I would destroy them and I would make them look an absolute fool. So I wouldn't mind debating them any given time.
You can't compare to the status right here. Legendary worldwide, we can battle right here. Listen, Junior, I'ma tear back your wig. This ain't TV, but I'll show you what a fear factor is. Stop grilling me, and all that fronting is killing me. You leave me no choice but to hurt your feelings, G. About to slap rappers around and bruise